name is Riley Cowan. I'm operational readiness support with Inter Pipeline, and I'd like to welcome you all to the new reality of work for oil and gas professionals in Alberta, presented by Jackie Rafter. Just a couple housekeeping notes here. We will be recording this session, so just be aware that this session is going to be recorded. Also, we will have a Q&A session, so there is a Q&A box that you can click into to write your questions in. We won't be taking questions over the microphone, so please write in your questions into the Q&A section. There's also a poll that we'd ask everyone to fill out as they enter in here, just so we have kind of an idea of our demographics, which will help Jackie with her presentation. So anyways, I want to introduce Jackie Rafter. She is the founder and president and CEO of Higher Landing. She's a visionary career transformation strategist, educator, entrepreneur with a passion for helping people discover and live their purpose. As founder, president, and CEO of Higher Landing, Jackie helps professionals, executives, globally known athletes to transition and transform their careers. The proprietary career transformation methodology she has pioneered at Higher Landing is being broadly adapted across professions, particularly in the oil and gas industries, as it experiences current disruptive change. A born and raised Calgarian, Jackie is a passionate change agent who believes deeply in the ability of people to tap into their potential. She is particularly focused on helping people reinvent, brand, and package themselves to take advantage of massive systemic changes taking place in job search and career management. She is taught at the Haskayne School of Business at the University of Calgary and regularly appears in various media as an expert and thought leader on professional market and career transformation strategies necessary to thrive in it. Jackie holds dual degrees from the University of Calgary with an MBA and a Bachelor of Education in French, and is a registered holistic nutritionist. She's a champion of helping people live healthy and authentic lives and enjoys travel and running long distance. She has worked in 5 countries around the world, including Monaco, the UK, Switzerland, and South Africa. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jackie Rafter. Thanks for presenting today.
Thank you very much, Riley, for that wonderful introduction. Hopefully I can live up to it. Well, welcome everybody. I would like to introduce you to what appears to be a very important and timely topic that should be of particular interest to oil and gas professionals, whether you are employed, on contract, or in transition. And I noticed that there was a poll. So Riley, if you or someone on your team could just let me know once you have the results of that poll, that would be terrific. So we work with a lot of professionals in Alberta and Canada whose careers are in the midst of unprecedented disruption right now, primarily due to the alarming shift within Alberta's energy sector. So as a career management company, I really feel that it's important to be able to pass along the most current, timely, and objective information to you so that you can be equipped to manage your careers as we navigate through these waters of unprecedented change, especially as we head into 2021. So as you know, we are in the midst of probably one of the world's largest societal and workforce shifts in history. And it's impacting our resource sector probably at the fastest pace on record. So what this means for anybody that works in the sector is that there is no going back, you guys, there's only going forward. So as job growth in the energy sector slows, it's important to ask yourself, well, what does that mean for you? What does that look like? And really, we owe it to ourselves to find out the answers to some of these big burning questions and become informed of this whole new reality of work. And find some of the answers to all of this uncertainty happening to our professional careers. There isn't one person whose career on Alberta's earth, so to speak, that is not being impacted. And, when we look at kind of a bigger picture perspective, what we've gone through is probably more than 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months when the pandemic started. And, this massive disruption is still unfolding and impacting the lives of thousands of Albertans and their families whose livelihoods have depended on the energy sector for decades. So I would just like to start with a few slides, if I may. So if you just look at Calgary in the last 2 weeks, it's like we've been sucker punched. And, I'll just, specifically with Calgary, I was trying to find some stats last night, but in September, Calgary faced the highest levels of unemployment in all of Canada, if you can believe it. Last September, our unemployment rate was something like 6.6%. Stats showed that in September of this year, unemployment rose to 11.7%. Now, that does not include probably all of those that are not being counted. So a lot of our clients, and so we work with a lot of clients in the energy sector. Most of them are professionals who come to us for either help managing their careers to navigate their path forward, whether they are working or whether they are in transition. And a lot of these people have told me that these stats are really misleading because our unemployment rate is probably closer to 20% or even higher. So when you add insult to injury by looking at what's happened to Calgary just in the past few weeks, we look at Suncor, who announced a 15% cut to their workforce. So that's probably going to be close to 2,000 jobs. Shell announced 9,000 jobs were going to be eliminated by 2022. The Cenovus and Husky merger, another 2,000 jobs are going to be lost within the next year. Enmax, even Exxon. And so a lot of people, and by the way, there was an article in today's Herald, if you'd like to look at it. It was by Chris Varco. He actually interviewed me and some of our clients for the article. But, and people like that are asking, okay, well, what do we do? And, as I was saying, there's no going backward, there's only going forward. And you cannot move forward, you guys, with one eye in the rearview mirror. So what does that mean? And so we take our clients through a lot of strategic methodologies to be able to not just survive these choppy waters, but actually surpass them and rise above them. So I'm hoping that that's some of the information I'm going to be able to pass on to you today. So specifically when we look at Calgary, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of these signs around. Before, these signs used to say, Calgary be part of the energy. And now it's really part of the energy transition. And if you think that that's not going to happen, you're only kidding yourselves. And I've been saying this for probably the better part of 5 years. And when we look at what's happened to Alberta specifically, say since 2015, that's when we started to see the earth starting to rumble. And it's when we started to see mass layoffs starting to occur with some of the major producers. We started to see the blocking of pipelines. Investment capital was drying up. Jobs started to become redundant. And, a lot of people they were living in denial. A lot of our clients going through our program in 2015, 2016 said, absolutely no way am I going to change. I love my job. I've been a drilling engineer or a reservoir engineer for the past 20 years. I'm going to stay in it. My parents were employed in it. My grandparents were, and I am going to, and so are my children. And I thought, goodness gracious, well, good luck with that. And so if that wasn't bad enough, then we started to see the proliferation of things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, all colliding together to create what we thought at the time was the perfect storm. Now we add in this pandemic, and it's like we've been hit by a bus. So most people don't know what to do. They're in a state of panic, and they're really not sure what lies ahead for them. Most of our clients, just to put it into perspective, and this probably reflects most of you, you're probably not at an age where you are able to retire or even want to retire. You want to continue to contribute, to give back to the province some way or to the country, and you've got families to feed. So what is it that you're going to do if there are fewer jobs in Canada's energy sector? So when you look at sort of the bigger picture, we're facing probably one of the world's largest societal and workforce shifts in history. Job redundancies have been escalating at record speed. there are a lot of experts that have been telling me that 45% of current jobs are going to be gone by 2030. So within the next decade, if you can believe this, just picture this, we're going to have the largest workforce transition in history. So are you going to be part of that, or are you going to be part of the group that ends up managing through all of this uncertainty and remains employed? And, you know, we're not looking at a recession, you guys. We are in the midst of a paradigm shift. So when these jobs that are becoming redundant are gone, they're gone. They're not coming back. And a lot of those people are going to need to change careers unless they don't have to work for whatever reason. The World Economic Health Forum said that by I think it was 2022, that more than half the workforce, our current workforce, is going to need retraining just to remain competitive, just to keep their jobs, not to get a new one. And this is impacting every single industry on the planet. And there is a lot of work being done right now. This is important to understand. There's a lot of work being done right now, including to a lot of Alberta industries, behind the scenes to bring artificial intelligence in. And all of these industries are marching forward at the same pace, the same speed. And when they shift, they will be shifting, they will be swinging like a hammer. And that's what we don't understand. I've actually got a guest speaker coming to speak to us tomorrow. I'll tell you about him. His name is Dennis Cambites. He's a world-renowned roboticist, and he's going to be talking about how the world of robotics is going to be impacting all industries around the world, especially in Alberta. And the one thing that's important for you to know, especially if you are working in the energy sector, is that artificial intelligence and robotics are not specific industries unto themselves. They are interwoven into everything we do, just like a computer is. So it's important that all of us, we don't have to become artificial intelligence or experts or roboticists, but as we move forward, we're going to have to understand what they can do. How will a robot impact your industry, your job right now? And so, you know, looking at the bigger picture, we probably achieved 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. That also happened to our business. So we are a training business. We have a large facility in downtown Calgary where we were delivering in-person classes, just like any kind of school, I guess, would. And within the course of 2 weeks, we had to pivot our entire business to an online platform. I mean, I pretty much had a heart attack in the process, but our livelihoods were on the line. And so we had to be able to learn and adapt quickly just to survive, never mind thrive, as did a lot of businesses. So businesses all over the place have been forced to automate at record speed. And unfortunately, this has resulted in unprecedented job market uncertainty along the way too. So if you're interested, I just wanted to mention to you, there's a couple of webinars. One we just did on Friday with Rory Johnston. He was a commodity analyst from Toronto that was talking about the future of Alberta's energy economy. Should I be planning a career transition? So that recording is actually on the Higher Landing website. So I would strongly suggest you watch that if that topic is of interest to you. As well, you are welcome to attend. This is a free webinar tomorrow, actually, at 3 o'clock by Dennis Cambites. And he's going to be talking about the impact of robotics and artificial intelligence on the job market and your career, and specifically how it pertains to Alberta. Now, because so many of our clients are working in the energy sector, there's going to be a lot of talk on that tomorrow as well. So you can register on our website if you're interested. So Rory was saying, you know, there's a lot of clients come to us and they say, okay, well, what is it that I should be doing next? And, you know, there's this, Rory says it beautifully. He said, you know, there's this classic refrain about laid off oil workers in some regions of the country saying, okay, well, oh, well, they'll learn to code. And he said, not only is that insulting, I think it's terrifying for rural communities to hear that's what people in the cities and government think we need. And I think it's deeply, deeply disheartening. So it does not mean that if you are a petroleum engineer or a geologist or whatever, that you're going to have to just drop everything, drop your whole career behind you and move into a computer science degree of some sort. That's not what we're saying at all. It's about understanding your value first before you even think of going back to school or taking a course. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. So the bigger picture of what's happening to Alberta right now as well is that we're moving from a resource economy to a knowledge economy. Now that's going to be impossible for the entire province, but it's important that I think you understand that from a big picture perspective, this is where we're heading. And Peter Tertzakian, who is a very well-known economist in the energy sector in Alberta, says, you know, that it's unrealistic to expect a transition to a 100% knowledge economy when the bulk of our wealth has been and continues to be driven by resources. So he talks about these three stages of disruption, denial, and transition. He believes that we are certainly in the transition phase, and I'm sure that a lot of you can start seeing signs of that already occurring in either your job or just within the industry in general. When we look at Alberta, I just like to kind of give you a little bit of perspective. I'm sure that this will not be news to everybody. But the Business Council of Alberta has been doing some regular studies. I love the work that they're doing. I think that it's very accurate and objective. But they did a survey of, I think it was over 60 CEOs in May of this year. And what is kind of startling, I mean, if we were to have taken this information more seriously, you guys, we could have predicted all of these layoffs that we're currently seeing now. And that they're not stopping, by the way. There's going to be more happening in other companies. So 64% of these organizations said that they were deferring or canceling capital projects. More than half, so 52%, said that they had canceled contracts or tenders. Maybe you've even seen that in some of your organizations. 61% said that they had laid off employees, and over half said that they had implemented pay cuts. I guess the only silver lining in that cloud, though, was that 43% said that they had either introduced or increased online, digital, or e-commerce operations. So similar to what happened to us, for example. The survey also showed that business confidence in Alberta specifically, which is really quite alarming. They said 26% said that they weren't certain that their organization was going to survive this crisis without some sort of vaccine or reaching herd immunity, which is pretty frightening. 61% said that they expected demand in their market would be slower to recover. 18% said that they expected they would not refill lost positions. Almost half, 47%, so these were the most recent stats that I collected last night, expected employment levels will be lower, so more layoffs happening. And, And 25% said that they expected hiring to happen next year. Oops, sorry, I just can't see the slide. So as you can see, we are in the midst of a paradigm shift. This is far beyond a recession, you guys. And the only thing that is certain is uncertainty and change. So how are we going to manage that? I mean, we have to be practical here. So if you look at some of the trends happening in the energy sector specifically, we're looking at over 175,000 out of work oil and gas workers. That's unbelievable. We would have never imagined that happening a year ago. A low carbon future is going to be here to stay. There's a lot of talk about green recovery. I know that a lot of our clients are kind of questioning this. They're wondering where in the world all of these green jobs are going to be. But I think it's coming because a lot of the major producers, like you're seeing Shell and some of the other ones, are rebranding to become, to move away from being oil and gas companies to energy companies. And as I was saying earlier, we're moving from that resource economy to a knowledge economy. So what does that mean for you? Alberta is already decoupling economic growth with growth from carbon emissions. So if you look from 2015 to 2018, provincial GDP grew 34%, while greenhouse gas emissions just grew by 18%. So we're moving on the right track there. So the work that we are doing is indeed making an impact. It's just that we can't stop. We have to accelerate it. Alberta Innovate's Clean Growth Report said that, I mean, this is no surprise, Albertans are facing a higher risk of job loss as a low carbon future approaches. So what this means is that technology adoption will be an essential catalyst of clean growth, and new low carbon technologies will not reduce emissions, though, if people don't use them. So are we going to get on the bandwagon or not? I know that there's been a lot of resistance to implementing new technologies in a lot of companies in the energy sector, but those are probably ones that are not going to last the long haul. There are pivots happening within the industry itself, such as, you know, you're looking, maybe some of you even work in these. So things such as repurposing old wells for sources of geothermal energy, or new methods of extracting hydrogen from oil sands while keeping the carbon emissions underground. And there's a lot of international producers that are placing large bets on wind and solar instead of oil and gas. So I'm sure that most of you remember BP saying that they feel that oil oil demand may have already peaked. That is really frightening, because what that means is that it takes a sort of a leader with a lot of clout in the industry to take a stand, and then have a lot of other smaller organizations follow them. So I think this is an inevitable change that we're going to be facing. So what does this mean for you? So there's going to be a lot more diversification happening. A lot of jobs in multiple industries. I'm noticing that our clients are pivoting. A lot of our clients are pivoting into doing new things. Unfortunately, they're also moving out of the province. So in the past 3 weeks, I've seen a half a dozen of our clients move to other provinces for work. I've seen, actually, they were all engineers except one was an HR person, moved to Saskatchewan, British Columbia, as well as Ontario. And we can have a discussion about that. That's a whole other topic unto itself. Technical oil and gas professionals are pivoting to help companies automate and transform their businesses. So if that seems to be something in your wheelhouse, it's something that you're really going to want to package and brand yourself as being an expert in, because that is going to give you a lot more career certainty. Any process-driven work is going to be at risk if it can be standardized or fully documented. So automated services as well versus face-to-face interaction are going to be taking the lead. So just look at what happens when you go to a grocery store now. There's pretty much, there's getting to be less, or even a bank. I mean, there's less and less face-to-face interaction. And there's going to be a lot more jobs in micro-credentialing. So rather than going back to, say, university for a 4-year degree, what I'm starting to see is more of an interest and an inclination towards going back for a shorter term certification. So whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, 18 months, it seems to make a lot more sense, because things are changing so quickly anyway. What the sad reality of what's happening is that I feel bad, because we work with some of these new grads. They invest, you know, thousands of dollars in a 4-year education, only to find that once they've graduated, there's no work for them. That already it's become redundant. I know that there is extremely diminishing interest in or decline in registrations for the petroleum engineering programs, certainly at University of Calgary. I don't know what it's like in other jurisdictions, but this is kind of our future talking to us, and we would be remiss if we didn't pay attention to that. So when you look at what is going to be happening to job search and how job search has changed because of COVID and these other sort of workforce shifts that we're seeing, jobs that you cannot outsource to a machine are going to grow. So anything service-oriented, creative, or highly technical. Industries that rely on the physical presence of people are going to take longer to recover. So this doesn't really apply to you, but it's interesting to note that anything to do with the arts, entertainment, hospitality, you've already seen those industries go through a major disruption. And then, of course, jobs in resource extraction and manufacturing are going to decline. So service orientation and collaboration is also going to rise in importance. And, you know, one of the things that we can do, and I think every one of you should be doing, is actively looking for ways to help other people. We are not going to get through this alone. And I know that those might just sound like trite words, but trust me, you guys, we have got to work together. We've got to extend a helping hand to anybody that needs it, because it might happen to you. And what's going to happen when you need that helping hand? So don't bite off somebody's hand when they're asking for your help. because we can no longer solve problems alone anymore. That applies to not only employees, but also employers. And we do this thing called IP. And IP stands for, and this is something you should take note of, IP stands for the two most, not intellectual property. So I know that I call it that just because that's the easy way for people to remember it. But IP stands for the two most important questions to ask in any important conversation, whether it's a job interview, a conversation with your boss, or any important meeting. I stands for what's important to you, and P stands for what are your pain points. So what's keeping you up at night? What are your problems? And so unless you understand someone's IP, there's no way you're going to be able to help them. So from a career management perspective, if you want to keep your job or keep it longer than you were expecting, understand what your bosses and your company's IPs are. And then look for ways that you can help them. It's all about helping them, you guys. And the other thing with COVID is that it's really important to understand that organizations' IPs prior to COVID, so in early March, are very different than the IPs that they are experiencing today. So when you are doing an IP, you don't want to know what somebody's problems are going to be 6 months or 6 years out. We all could be dead. We all could be blown up by that. What you want to know is what their pain points are today, now. What's in their face? Because employers today want to know what you can do for them, not later, today, now. So this is a really fundamental thing for you to know in order to be able to manage your career strategically. So you need to know your value and take that to market. So when we're dealing with all of this uncertainty, you have to hang on to what's constant, and there is no such thing as job certainty anymore. There's no such thing as jobs for life. And so instead, the only thing that is certain is our value. A job will be ripped away from you in a second. Knowing your value stays with you for life. That is the one thing nobody will ever be able to take away from you. And that is the one thing you're going to carry with you to your grave. So why not get paid for it? So if you don't know what your value is, there's no way you will ever know what kind of jobs to be applying for. And this is especially important if you are looking to transition your career or even moderately pivot. And it's about understanding your value and then looking for those, having strategic conversations with those that you think will appreciate your value. And if they don't, you move on. And so don't be upset when, you get laid off and somebody says to you, well, you weren't needed anymore. Well, maybe they didn't know what your value was. If you let somebody else guess what your value is, guess what they're going to do? They're going to guess wrong. So when it comes to career management, this is the important work that we teach. And I would just like to pass on to you the importance of understanding what your value is. It's the one thing that really smart people and professionals seem to really struggle with. But it's one of the biggest and best investments you will ever make in your life, especially during a time of change, and especially if you care about your future careers. The other reason that that's so important is because the job market is becoming so competitive. And there's also a migration towards hiring people more for things like creativity, collaboration, learnability, more of our soft skills than there is hard skills. You guys, hard skills, unfortunately, and I know that you are Alberta-based energy professionals, your hard skills are a dime a dozen. So unless you've just come up with some amazing patented technology that's going to turn the energy sector on its head, you are going to just bleed into the woodwork if that's what you are doing to manage your career. And if you think that you're so great and wonderful because you've got a petroleum engineering degree and you've got 10 years of industry experience, you've never been laid off, blah, blah, blah. Well, I got to tell you something. Good luck. That is not going to be the insurance policy that you will be able to rely on going forward to manage your career in the next decade to come. It's about understanding your value and packaging that. So when we look at what kind of jobs, if any of you are looking at the job market, The kind of jobs that we're going to be seeing more of are those that require the automation or digitization of any process. So we're seeing it in pretty much any industry. So I've just listed a few here: oil and gas, petrochemicals, manufacturing, accommodation, banking, food services, retail, construction, and healthcare. So the kinds of jobs, I mean, and these are often changing. So tomorrow at the Dennis Cambites' webinar, I'm really curious to know what he's going to say. But, you know, look for titles that have artificial intelligence in them: cybersecurity, software, e-commerce, robotics, engineering, training of, and the other thing too, this is important. If any of you have an interest in training people on new technologies, I think that's going to be of rising demand and rising importance, because people are going to need training, like me. I'm going to need training on new and existing or on new digital processes, because not everybody is digitally gifted. That's just the reality of the workforce. So where does this leave you? So once again, value is replacing hard skills. So ask yourself, what do you think your value is, and what value do you bring to an employer? So remember, your value is the only constant, because it stays with you for life. And so just remember something too: there is no such thing as job security anymore. But what is replacing it is career security. But the only way to have career security is to know your value, or your brand, or as I call it, your secret sauce. What is that? What is it that you do where that you have consistently made an impact wherever you've gone? How will someone's life or someone's company be different with you? How has someone's life or someone's company been different because of you? What kind of impact have you made? And you know, your value, this is important to note too, your value has got nothing to do with your hard skills or your last job title. It has been with you since the get-go, and you're going to die with it. So whatever that is, it's up to you. So what is it that you do? Do you have a consistent track record of making somebody look good, or of making somebody money, or of letting somebody sleep at night? Because you can solve stuff that everybody else gives up on, you know, or you like to do the work that nobody else likes to do. What is that? So it's really important that you understand that, because once you do, that is how you start developing career security, because nobody will ever take that away from you. No one can ever dispute that. You will never have anybody challenge you on that, because, and on top of it, nobody will be able to compete. That's why it's so important, especially in any kind of competitive job market like we're about to experience, even more so in Alberta. So when it comes to technology, if any of you have an interest or an ability or an aptitude, I guess, for automation, ask yourself, look around you and say, well, what can you automate? Should you pivot? And what's your value? And how can you create more of it? And then keep doing IP. So if you're trying to find out what to pivot, go around and ask people what their pain points are. What are they struggling with? What's keeping them up at night? If there was one thing that they could fix that would let them sleep at night, what would that be? And once you get really good at doing these IPs, whether you are working or not, it's especially important when you're working, by the way. That's when you can start understanding. This is how you make yourself almost indispensable, because it's like you're going to know somebody's pain points before even they will. And I've noticed that people that have done really good IPs in job interviews have ended up with a better job than what they went to the interview for in the first place. Because they've done such great IPs, they've been able to understand what is it okay, so an employer has posted this particular job, okay, but I want to know really, why did you post it? What is it that you're really struggling with? Because a lot of people are not sophisticated HR people or job description writers. And, you know, they might have said to their assistant or somebody else in another department, hey, we need another petroleum engineer, go post something. And that posting might be 6 years old. So I'll just give you an example. We had an engineer in our program who applied for an engineering job, and he was from the oil and gas industry. And he said, you know, the job was okay. It was kind of beneath my pay grade. And that's what we're seeing a lot of is underemployment, unfortunately. And he didn't want to be part of that statistic. So he went to this interview and he said, Jackie, they called me back 4 times. And I said, wow, that's pretty heavy. And he said, well, yeah. And every time they would ask me back, they would bring more people from the organization. And I said, well, did you find out why? And he said, well, actually I did. And he said, because with every interview, every one of those interviews, I kept doing IPs on the person that I was meeting with, and they realized that they had pain points that they hadn't even addressed yet. So one of their pain points happened to be the fact that they were spending way too much money on EPC fees, so engineering consulting fees. And that's what was really, really bothering this particular president of this company. So what our client did was say, well, you know what? I have an idea for you. Have you ever thought of taking your engineering in-house? And the guy said, well, you know, I've never thought about that. We wouldn't have the expertise and I wouldn't know how to do that. And he said, well, what about if I do that for you? And the guy said, what? And he said, yeah. He said, you know, that's what, you know, I've got some experience doing that. Not a lot, but I think I could do it. And I'll bet I could save you a ton of money. So guess what? They created a new role for him, and he's got 4 people working for him now. And he's running this engineering department, created a whole new engineering department. So the guy's so excited that he can't barely stand himself. The only problem is that the job, he was living in Edmonton, and now the job was in Saskatchewan. But this is the power of IPs. I hear stories of success stories of IPs all the time. So this is something that you could really provide. This would be really complementary to your own professional development. So when it comes to understanding your value, it's really, this is where I say people really struggle, and they don't know what it is, what their value is. So I say to them, okay, well, what is it that makes you different? What is it that makes you special? What is it that's going to make you stand out from the thousands of applicants with your same technical skills or same background? So I just wanted to take you through this little process really quickly, because I think it will really help you, whether you are in transition or you are currently working. So this is like, career management is like a process. Picture that. And I know that most of you here probably love process. You believe in process. You like to follow process. So just imagine following a process as it comes to managing your career. So think of it as a product going to market. So think of you as being the product that is going to market. So number 1, you have to know what the product is. So who are you? Number 2, you have to package it up effectively. The last thing you do is you take it to market in that order. And where most people fall apart is they race to market and they are not ready, right? So whether, you know, I want a promotion, I want a promotion. Okay, so they go to their boss, and their boss says, okay, well, what's going on? Well, I want that job. Well, why? Just because I think I deserve it. Well, why is that? Because I've been here for so long. And they just like laugh at you. And because they're not ready to go to market. They don't know who they are. They don't know the product. They haven't packaged themselves effectively. And now they're just racing to market, and they're going to lose out on all kinds of opportunities. So this is especially even more important when you are looking for work, when you are in transition. So this is a model that I just wanted to quickly share with you that I think will help you in identifying what your value is. So when you're looking at that first step, trying to understand who you are, what it is that makes you different, I recommend that people go through this change management process. So this is a process that is based on a model called the logical levels of change. And all I've done is I've adapted it to those that are trying to manage their careers better. So at the very bottom of this pyramid, we're moving from the stages of transition, all the way up to the stages to transformation. And this does not mean that it's got nothing to do with pivoting a career. I'm going to have to completely do a 180 and do something completely different. No, it's got to do with knowing who you are as the product. Because you cannot go to market until you know this. So you have to apply this model to yourself. So the very bottom of this pyramid, we have survival and crisis. So what that means is that if you're going through something really serious in your life, so a death, a divorce, you know, you've even going through a serious job loss, where there's been a lot of trauma, my advice to you is, if you can, take a time out, because you really have to find some stability in your life first. That's not a time to be thinking strategically. And it's also the last time, you could never do IPs. I mean, because when you think about it, when you're in a state of survival or crisis, it is near impossible to think about anybody other than yourself, right? You've got to get through this crisis. So you have to manage that. And if you have to, if that means getting a survival job, you do whatever it takes. So once you've found some stability, then you look at the next level of the pyramid, which is abilities and skills. And I would say this is where over 90% of Alberta professionals are stuck. And the reason I say this is that they are continuing to identify themselves, market themselves, apply for jobs solely on the basis of their hard skills. That does not work anymore. That's completely outdated because it is far too competitive. Plus the world is changing. Plus there's so many people that are moving towards transforming their careers into a pivot. The only way that you're going to successfully do that is to know your value. Because if you were providing great value as an electrical engineer or a production engineer or whatever, guaranteed you're going to provide value in whatever it is you do next. Whether it's robotics or finance or banking, you are still going to be able to provide value, but it's your job to find out what it was that you were providing so much value on or for. So your abilities and skills this is really important to know, but it's not just your hard skills, you guys, which is where most people get stuck. It's also probably even more important, so importantly now, it's to understand what your soft skills are. So your soft skills are those traits that are an inherent part of you. No one will ever take them away. I also believe that they're very hard to train someone to do. So things like being caring or nurturing or empathetic or funny, being able to collaborate, being able to make somebody feel good. So if you have any of those skills, make sure that other people around you know that. And if you are in transition, make sure that you put those soft skills on your resume as well. Because I always tell our clients, you might get an interview because of your hard skills, and your hard skills might get your foot in the door, but it's your soft skills that are going to actually get you hired. So if you don't know what those soft skills are, my gosh, figure them out now. So this is a lot of what we do in our program. So the next level of the pyramid is about interests and passions. And, my philosophy is very much about connecting your head to your heart. I think that's a hugely important part of career management. And nobody's really talking about it because they think it's hokey. Even I thought it was hokey when I started my company. And then I realized that, there isn't one successful person on the planet that hasn't already done this. And making the trip from here to here, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's probably one of the most important journeys you'll ever make in your life, personally and professionally. So what this means is understanding what are those things that you really love to do. And not because, let's say you love gardening, okay, well then you should go work for a nursery. It's got nothing to do with that at all. It's understanding the why behind it. So just to give you a really quick example, we had an engineering client in our program. He had just been laid off from his employer. So he was with the company, 10, 12 years, but when he was laid off, he was completely devastated. He did not see it coming. And so he was probably mid to the later stages of his career. So when he came into our program, I'll never forget, he was kind of negative, right? He was really down on himself. And I thought, okay, well, he's probably just still in a lot of grief and pain. He's still mourning his last job. And so I was trying to take him through this pyramid. And I said, okay, Jim, tell me. I said, what are you passionate about? And he said, oh, I hate that word. And I said, okay, well, call it something different. Call it interests, hobbies. What is it that you like to do in your spare time? And he said, nothing. And I thought, okay, how am I gonna deal with this? And I said, okay, well, listen, Jim. I said, what did you do on the weekend? And he said, oh, well, I was gardening with my wife. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And I said, so you like gardening, do you? And he said, well, whoa, I didn't say that. And I said, okay, well, can I ask you a question? I said, why is it that you like gardening? Well, I don't know. I guess it's kind of creative and I don't know, maybe it's kind of nurturing or something. And I said, oh, so I said, is nurturing important to you? And he said, well, whoa, like I didn't say that or anything. And I thought, okay, how am I going to manage this? And I knew his whole heart and mind was at his last job. So I thought, okay, well, let's go there. So I said, okay, Jim, I said, can you think of a time in your career, in your last job, where you might have nurtured something, where it resulted in something really good, some sort of a win? And he thought about it, and all of a sudden there was this dead silence. I thought, what the heck is going on? So I looked over at him, and all of a sudden I could see his lips start to quiver, and I thought, uh-oh, now what? All of a sudden he put his head up, and he said, when I look back at my last job, he said, yes, I absolutely can think of some things. And I said, well, what was that? And he said, well, when I look back at my last job, it's like everybody who worked for me went on to do greater things than I did. One became the president of this division. One became a VP. This other person started his own business. And all of a sudden, Jim broke down in tears. And he said, you know, I had no idea that I had any value to that company whatsoever. And I said, Jim, I said, do you realize that that company probably wouldn't be where it is without you? I said, you were the builder of these superstars. And I said, they didn't know. And he said, I know. And I said, well, whose fault do you think that is? I said, you know, it wasn't theirs. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, this is why you're here. This is what career management is about. It's your job, it's your responsibility to make sure that not only do you know what your value is, but once you do know, that you educate everybody around you, above you, and below you as to what your value is. Because that is how you build an unstoppable career, and that is also what you want to be known as a go-to person for. That is what you want to be paid for. Because you cannot suppress your value for long. This is when we get into trouble at work. I don't know if this has happened to any of you, but it certainly happened to me. And it's because they didn't care about my value. So what do? You move on to somebody that does. That's when you really flourish. So the next level of the pyramid are values and beliefs. And this is where you address the things that are important to you. And the reason that that's so important is because if what's important to you is not important to who you're working for or with, you're not going to be happy or successful. This is why it's so important to try to seek out those that you think will appreciate your value, because they're going to have better than likely chance of aligning with your values and beliefs as well. So then the next level of the pyramid is identity, and that's being able to describe who you are in 5 seconds or less. So we do, I do a branding workshop once a month. It's about a 5-hour workshop. If any of you are interested, I would strongly recommend that you register for it. It's a very worthwhile use of your time, I believe. But it's being able to provide an answer to this entire pyramid, so that when somebody says to you, who are you? You can tell them in 5 seconds or less. So we go into these words like North Stars, and they're words that would basically describe you in just a few seconds. So whether you were the Navy SEAL or you're a MacGyver or what have you, you'll notice that if you go on to the LinkedIn profiles of any of the higher landing clients, you'll notice that their North Stars are there as differentiators for them. I've seen people get promoted because of their North Stars. I've also seen people get hired because of them. People think it's hokey. It's absolutely not. So then the next level of the pyramid, once you start developing this increased level of self-awareness, then we go to purpose, and that's helping you to get clarity on what is it that you really should be doing rather than what you can do. I don't know. I think it's just heartbreaking the number of people that I have seen in our programs that never wanted to do what they've done for a living ever. And I said, well, why did you do it? Well, my dad told me I better take it. Well, I said, well, why is that? That's just ridiculous. Well, I didn't want to disappoint them. And I mean, that's just that, so we end up, when we start living somebody else's life when we start living our life for somebody else, it never ends well, you guys. So this is an opportunity for you to finally be doing probably the most important work of your professional lives. And that is figuring out and honoring you first, so that you can be good for others, including your family. So I very much believe in the importance of living purpose-driven careers. And this is especially important in times of crisis and in times of uncertainty like this, because you cannot afford to get a job that you are not aligned with anymore. So please understand, start thinking about what a purpose-driven career would look like for you. Then you have to be realistic and look at direction. So that's being clear on what's in demand. We have this thing called the Grizzly Den. If we have time at the end, I'm happy to show it to you, but it is very similar to TV's Dragon's Den, and it's part of our program, and our clients have a chance to present themselves to a panel of decision makers they don't know, who are there to either help them, or even in some cases they'll hire them. And so they present, if you look on our website, a lot of them are petroleum engineers too, by the way. Their recording of their presentations are on our website. So that's something else that happens if you go into the den. I mean, it's amazing marketing collateral as well as learning material. But a lot of times the Grizzlies will, these are questions that the Grizzlies will ask too. And and I've noticed that, let's say our geoscience clients, they'll be asked this question. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to be a geologist. Okay, well, where? And 9 times out of 10, you guys, unless they have some unique bionic skill that is actually in demand in that industry, they will not get Grizzly certified. So in order to get certified, you have to have the majority of Grizzlies on your panel deem that you are indeed ready to go to market. And if what you say you want to do is not in demand, you are not going to get certified. So you have to be realistic. So right now, there is a shrinking market in the energy sector. So you have to say, you've almost got no choice but to start looking at your options, because otherwise people can't help you. The top of the pyramid is practical value, and you have to be realistic and say, okay, well, what can I do that somebody will actually pay me for? So yeah, wouldn't I love to be a rocket scientist? But I don't think anyone would really, whether it's in demand or not, I don't know, but I really highly doubt that anyone would pay me to do that. So a lot of our clients say, okay, well, what are the hard skills in demand right now? So the 10 most in demand hard skills globally: blockchain, cloud computing, analytical reasoning, artificial intelligence, user experience design, business analysis, affiliate marketing, sales, and scientific computing. Most in-demand soft skills, and I think this is probably even more important: creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, learnability, emotional intelligence or social perceptiveness, and multicultural awareness. So when you think of the reasons that these are so important, there's no way that we can solve problems alone anymore. So when I look at, so my background, I've started a number of businesses. I've had 2 professional search firms that specialized in the energy sector. And I remember our clients calling us saying, you know, they wanted a subject matter expert. They wanted somebody that could do one thing and one thing really, really well. And they had to work on their own, and that's all that mattered. Well, now, welcome to 2020, and it's like most people feel like they've been hit by a bus, because now clients are looking for people that have the ability to think out of the box. That's what's important to them. They don't care about how long they were at their last job. Not to diminish loyalty or anything, but that's just not as important to them right now. Go back and think about IPs. People are in a state of crisis right now, and so they're pain points. What can you do to solve their pain points? If you can think out of the box, if you've got an ability to be persuasive, collaborate. These are really important. Learnability is probably one of the most important soft skills, I think, of the next decade to come. And make sure that learnability is on your resume if you do have a track record of learning things really quickly. Because I would hate for anybody to be overlooked for a promotion or for a new job just because they don't have some silly application that they could have taught themselves on a weekend. So make sure that you learn things. And whatever job you have or you are going to have, it's gonna look very different 6 months from now. That is how quickly things are changing. And we are all going to have to learn new things. Even me, who is not a digital genius by any stretch of the imagination, I had to learn. And when I got over my fear of kind of, you know, learning new technology, it wasn't so bad. And now it's like, okay, bring it on, within reason. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the future of work in Alberta beyond 2020. A few things that you should know is, you know, you have to assume control for your own career management, you guys, because no one's going to do it for you anymore. You're going to be rewarded for the value you bring versus how loyal you were in your last job. And career security, as I was mentioning, is replacing job security. But in order to have that career security, you need to know your value or your brand, or as I call it, your secret sauce. That is something nobody will take away. A job will be ripped away from you in a second. Knowing your value stays with you for life. So please make an investment in understanding what the heck it is. We're seeing a lot more discontinuous career paths, a lot more people working on contract, freelancing, entrepreneurs, no more jobs for life. Innovation is replacing a lot more jobs in 2021. And you have to be able to demonstrate learnability and soft skills. And when you do that, the exciting news, and I've seen this happen to a lot of our clients, like the engineer that I was telling you about, who got the job in Saskatchewan managing an engineering department. This is the best time ever to create your own job. But you cannot do that unless you are effectively doing IPs. And you know your value, right? So it's those two things are absolutely key. So if you get Grizzly certified, if you're interested in attending a den, this is what happens. You'll get Grizzly certified. This is a client of ours who is a professional engineer from the energy sector. I just thought it would be kind of fun to show him, Orlando Taboria. And he went through our program. And so what happens in the grizzly den, just for those of you that are interested, you're welcome to come and watch. You'll just have to reach out to me. Probably the best way is through LinkedIn, and just say, listen, I'm looking for, and I would like to be invited to the next grizzly den. So we do grizzly dens twice a month. They're by invitation only. And so what typically happens is that there's a panel of 5 or 6 grizzlies. So these are decision makers from multiple industries who are either here to either help or hire you. So what will happen is, after clients have been in our program, so the program is about 3 months, after about 2 months in, a client will have an opportunity to present themselves to a live panel of decision makers that we call the Grizzlies. And so the Grizzlies, so the presentation part is about a half an hour, then the person leaves the room, the Grizzlies go through a private confidential deliberation process, then they invite the person back in, they give them their feedback, and then if the majority of Grizzlies on the panel feel that the person is indeed ready to go to market, they get Grizzly certified. So you'll find that the Grizzlies, part of their evaluation criteria is evaluating clients on things like clarity, confidence, market readiness. Do they know their value? Is what they're looking for in demand? Would they hire them? And do they like them, right? So, and are they easy to refer? So this is the other thing too, is if you're going to effectively use your market, you have got to make it easy for somebody to help you. And if you make them do all the work that you should have done, in other words, well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. What do you think? You're gonna lose your network, and you're gonna find that they're gonna run away faster than you can blink, because nobody wants a make work project. So make it easy for them to help you. The other thing too that's kind of cool, I often follow this fellow, Sean Kanungo. He is actually, I think he's from Edmonton. So he's a motivational speaker that's very much with the times. And he talks about the balance of power shifting from organizations now to individuals, and how people are now legitimate businesses. So he goes to, I mean, this is what's happening. You know, when you become the CEO of your own career, which I believe all of you have an obligation to do for yourselves, and once you follow that process, you'll realize that you are your own mini business. So if you don't know what that mini business does, or if you don't know what the value of that mini business is, you've got nothing to package, and you've got nothing to take to market. It's really that simple, you guys. So spend some time thinking about what is important to you. Who are you, right? Who are you as a product? Package it up. And in our packaging process, we go through LinkedIn, resume, and making sure consistency of messaging is there. How you present, how you use tools like this, that sort of thing. Even your voicemail. And then we can take you to market. And when you're going to market, whether you are working or you're in transition, what you want to do is your target market includes those that you think will appreciate your value. So companies, people, industries. And so this is where it gets really exciting, because a lot of times people think, oh, well, you know, the market, I could only do one thing. I've been doing it my whole life, and there's nobody will ever hire me. Don't ever say that, you guys. You can do all kinds of things. And this is a really exciting time to be alive and to be in the work world right now, because you're on the precipice. You're going to be pioneers of a major transformation, a major paradigm shift. I just wanted to invite you once again to some of these events if you're interested. So tomorrow we've got a robotics and artificial intelligence webinar with Dennis Cambite. The details are on our website. I can show you later if you're interested. If any of you are interested in just learning more about what Higher Landing does in our programs, you can attend a free information session. I'm doing one this Friday morning, October 30th at, I believe it's 11 o'clock. They're about an hour and a half. And then November 16th, there seems to be a lot of interest in this. It's an we call it emerging sectors and transferable skills. It's a workshop that also includes one of North America's top aptitude tests. And it doesn't just test your aptitudes, the things that you can do, it also tests your interests. So I'm not aware of any kind of aptitude test that does quite what it does. So it's a really cool tool and resource for you to add to your toolkit when managing your career. We also have a boot camp that I'll be talking about. It's just a 10-week boot camp. It's been really popular. We offered it during COVID for free. Now we are continuing to offer it, but there's a small charge for it. But we put probably over 200 people through it this summer because we wanted to give back, and we realized that there was a huge void in go-to-market services for things like this. So there's a huge cohort learning. It's kind of like a mini career MBA, if you could look at it that way. Okay, so I think we're pretty much on time. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, looks like we're getting some popping into Q&A. Just to get this kicked off though, I will ask a question. As an avid self-learner, I guess, are there any books you could maybe recommend I should read on kind of helping me identify my soft skills and how to improve on them?
So in terms of, well, I can, any books by Simon Sinek. I love Simon Sinek. We follow a lot of his work. He does a lot of work on why, right? So why should you do something? So if you say your value is, you know, fixing stuff, I'm going to say, well, why do you like that? So it's, I would recommend any of his books. I know he's got a few new ones out right now, and I think they're excellent. He also has some great YouTube presentations, so you can just Google him.
All right, looks like got a question here. How much energy should one dedicate to show their values to their bosses instead of doing their professional duty, which is what they're hired for? You
guys, you should be doing, your value should be part of your day job. For however many hours you are there, that's what you should be doing. So you should be looking for ways to demonstrate your value, right? This is work. This is a job. So if you're, so we've got, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. So is this an engineer that asked the question? What does this person do, Riley?
I can't actually see what their position is.
Okay,
just the initials. So
it doesn't matter. So whatever it is, you know, you first of all, you have to understand what your value is. And I mean, once people understand it, they kind of look, oh God, okay, I get it. I should have known that all along because it's so obvious to them. But unless you can articulate it, it is absolutely meaningless. So the first thing you got to do is invest in figuring out what the heck your value is. Then look for ways to demonstrate that. So look for extra projects, extra assignments that you can take on, and to show that value. Because even if your boss is not interested in it, maybe somebody else in the company will be. So especially, you know, this is especially important if any of you guys are working at Husky or Synovus right now, or Suncor.
Okay, looks like another question from same individual. So aren't the majority of layoffs nowadays due to being in the wrong place in the wrong time, since there have been so many rounds of layoffs? If this is true, how could one make any difference by demonstrating their values?
Oh, you guys, this is not about anybody else. This is about you. You do this for yourself, not for your company. Because you have to be, this is an opportunity for you to be investing in your future. And so if you're not demonstrating your value at work, how can you, when somebody says, okay, well, give me an example of what you did at your last job, and you can't come up with something?
Okay. Another question popped up here. So someone had actually missed the first part. What is IP? And so I'll maybe just kind of spill onto that is, okay, what is IP? And, you know, is that something kind of you came up with internally, or is that something you've seen, you know, studied elsewhere, or what's?
So I developed it. It's a Jackie Rafterism. Okay. I should write a book about that, actually. Come to think about, maybe I will.
Okay. Okay, another question here. Could chasing hot topics like artificial intelligence backfire because some of these hot topics end up going nowhere, like many examples in our industry?
Okay, so I guess you got to qualify what you mean by chasing a hot topic. Let me just go back, and there's something that I want to clarify. If anyone is interested in upskilling or micro-credentialing or taking some extra education, my advice to you, before you do any of that, before you even start researching artificial intelligence, data analytics, machine learning, whatever that might be, first of all, make the investment in understanding what the heck your value is first. Because once you know your value, then what you want to do to develop an unstoppable career is look for courses, things that you can take to further amplify that value, not dilute it. So to give you an example, we had a fellow in our program, he called himself, his North Star was a Navy SEAL. And he had this track record of being dumped into dangerous, it was in the energy service sector, dumped into third world countries around the world to turn around their loss operations. And he had been held up at gunpoint and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, he was a real trooper. And but he loved it, right? Like he loved being in the action of things, and he was great at it. He was great with people. I think he even knew how to use a gun. But he was an action guy. He was like an Indiana Jones in a way. So why in the world would someone like that, let's say data analytics is the next big thing. I mean, it was. Now, so many of our clients, I saw they got sucked into taking these data analytics courses, and they never got jobs. It's not the ticket. It's not about why? Because they probably shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. I even saw clients, chemical engineers from the energy sector in our program, is taking these HTML courses to design websites. And I said, what in the world, Ian, are you doing that for? And he said, well, because it was free. And I said, well, as long as you've got a lot of time on your hands, go for it. But I said, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to get a job in that? He said, oh, heck no. I just did it because it was free. What a waste of your time and effort, you guys. We only have so many breaths on this planet. Make the best use of them. You guys are smart. So first of all, figure out what your value is. And like that Navy SEAL, look at courses. If you really want to upskill, look at things that you can take that is going to further amplify your value. Don't just take something because everybody says you should. That's baloney. I've seen too many horror stories happen that way.
Awesome. Okay, got a question here. So on your list of upcoming careers and areas, I noticed you didn't mention anything including environment or climate change. How important do you think these areas are?
Well, the jobs that I mentioned were more global. Those are the ones that were pretty much in demand. I think that there are going to be climate and environmental related jobs more so in Alberta. It's just that we're not seeing a huge influx of them yet. So we've got environmental engineers in our program, and they do land, but like their jobs are not in super abundance right now.
Okay. Question from Anonymous. How do you bring pain points up during an interview and get an honest answer?
You have to come to our program and we teach you about all that. So it takes practice, you guys, and to understand what someone's pain points are, it can be really subtle. So how are you doing today? You're going to tell me, right? So what are your top, what would you say your top priorities are? If you had the ideal person in this role, what would success look like to you? What would Nirvana look like to you with the ideal person in this role? What would success look like to you in a month or 3 months' time? If there was one problem you could take off your plate right now that would let you sleep at night, what would that be? I could go on and on, but there's a lot of them. I don't know if that helps.
Okay. Another question here. Does company loyalty mean anything nowadays if everyone is out for themselves?
Company loyalty might mean a little bit more to those that are still working for the same company they were loyal to. But once you leave, it really doesn't matter as much. So having been in the recruitment industry for a long time, I remember in let's say 8, 9, 10, let's say over 10 years ago, as a recruiter, and this is just a little secret, unless somebody had worked at the same company for at least 2.5, 3 years, we would just kind of put them aside and we wouldn't bring them to the top of the pile. Now, it really doesn't matter. The things that recruiters are looking for now is what are you doing to make yourself stand out? Are you taking courses on your own? What are you doing for professional and personal development? Are you coming up with new ideas, new technologies? What are you involved in? Attending things like SPE, for instance. Okay, well, what have you learned? How have you applied things that you've learned at SPE? The point is that there are so many people whose careers have been disrupted and that are in transition. People get it. They don't just, there was a real perception for a while, and there still is to a point, of not wanting to hire energy workers because they'll leave as soon as you know, energy prices, commodity prices go back up. You know, they want too much money, they're entitled, all this kind of silly stuff. But those are very real. Those are very real barriers. But what I am seeing is that those barriers are starting to diminish a little bit because there's so many really smart, talented people that are looking for work right now. So I don't know if that helped.
Good. Okay, another question here. What tests/tools do you recommend for helping identify value? This sounds to me like personality models and strengths of each type, e.g. MBTI, DISC, etc.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So psychometric testing, you guys, those are only tools. Don't, you know, you cannot just take it. Everybody wants to take a test, right? Take a test and tell me who I am. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work, you guys. This is heavy lifting that you have got to do on your own. Sometimes it'll take weeks for our clients to find out what their value is. You have to work, you have to collaborate with other people. You have to work in groups. So there's a strong cohort component to the work we do. And so there's a lot of homework, there's assignments, there is some assessments, but it's asking yourself the why. Why is it? So the easiest way that I could say, I mean, there's two things maybe. Come to the branding workshop and I'll give you a little bit of insight. That'll help a bit. But you know, can you think of something that's got you into trouble at work, where if the same situation were to repeat itself, you do the same thing again? That is your value speaking to you. Another one, ask yourself, why is it that you love what you do, what you love so much? And ask yourself why again and why again. And usually, like the example that I gave earlier about the fellow who liked gardening, it had nothing to do. I wasn't going to recommend that he go and work at Golden Acre Garden Center. It had nothing to do with that. But it's understanding the why. And then why is that? And why is gardening so important to you? Well, it's nurturing. Well, why is nurturing important to you? Well, I never really thought about it. Okay, well, think about it. Think about how you might have nurtured something at work that resulted in some sort of a win. And boom, the next thing you know, this guy's realizing what his value is. He's builder of, we called him, his North Star was the kingmaker, right? So you cannot pawn this work off. And by the way, you shouldn't. Self-discovery work, yeah, you can pepper it with a few assessments. Like for instance, in our emerging skills workshop, we do provide an aptitude test, but that is only one tool to further amplify or justify what you're already finding out about yourself. This is where I find it's kind of exciting too. A lot of technical people don't like to look at themselves. They don't like to look at the soft side of themselves. And you know, you're almost in a time where you're going to have to, in order to stay employed going forward in the next decade.
Okay, I'll give a few more minutes anyways for questions. I don't see anything else popping up. I'll ask another one here. I think problem with us in Alberta, sometimes we are very centered on Alberta. I'm just curious if you've seen kind of some of this disruption in other regions of Canada, maybe the manufacturing sector, for instance, in Ontario or Quebec, or just and if you have any kind of macro thoughts on disruption.
So my advice, you guys, is to check out the webinar on our website with Rory Johnston. So he's a commodity analyst. He talks a lot about that. So disruption is happening with pretty much every industry across the country right now. It's just that we emphasize the energy sector because it seems to be more pronounced, and this is where the majority of unemployment is happening. So there's the least amount of, actually it's shrinking, it's not growing. But yeah, transportation, I mean, even transportation, when you think of how artificial intelligence is going to impact the transportation industry, look at what autonomous vehicles are doing. You know, they're going to eliminate jobs. And once those jobs are gone, look at what's happened in the oil sands, right? Those driving jobs are not coming back. They're not coming back. Think about what AI is doing. I mean, Dennis Cambites talks about McDonald's. This is a really good example. So Dennis is actually from Calgary, but you know, he talks about McDonald's. So he said, you know, a few years ago, on an average McDonald's shift, there were 7 people. Okay, 7 people on a shift. Now there is 1 because they've automated everything. And so when you multiply 6 bodies times however many McDonald's there are in North America, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of jobs that are potentially permanently gone. So that is just one industry. I mean, we're talking the food and beverage and hospitality industry, but it is happening everywhere. And like all these industries are marching together. They're quietly implementing artificial intelligence. I mean, maybe this is what companies like Suncor. Suncor is really a leader in this. They've probably been doing this for years. I know that we've had some Grizzlies there on our panel. And, you know, this is probably no surprise for them. They could see this coming. It's just that nobody else could, right? So be prepared, you guys. This is happening to pretty much every industry.
Awesome. Well, I've not seen any other questions pop up in the chat here. So looks like you've done a great job of answering everyone's questions. So yeah, if there's anything else that kind of pops up from the random audience members, I'm sure we could probably give you kind of an email or some sort of a contact afterwards.
For sure. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Or just info@higherlanding.com will also find me.
Okay, cool. Oh, there was one question. Will the slide deck be made available?
Sure, we can. Yep, I can do that for you. Just for SPE.
That's great. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I want to give you, just an awesome job. You know, you're very passionate. It's exciting to see you present. So thank you very much on behalf of the SPE Events Committee, and yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Riley. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone, then.
You too. Bye.